faithfully delivering value and exploring great books worldwide. Hi, this is Sally with the Book Talk. Today I'll be discussing Machiavelli. This is one of the very short introductions series from Oxford University Press. Machiavelli was an Italian Renaissance figure living around the turn of the 15th and 16th centuries. He was a famous humanist scholar, historian, and politician. He broke free from the constraints of European theology and ethics of his time. He was the first to argue that national interests come first, which was groundbreaking back then. So Machiavelli is considered one of the founders of modern political thought. Actually, Machiavelli is a surname, but Niccolò Machiavelli had such a huge impact. For 500 years since he died, whenever people say Machiavelli, they mean Niccolò. But in the Western world after the Renaissance, Machiavelli became a symbol of evil. Shakespeare mocked him in his plays, and Marx and Engels ruthlessly criticized him. When reflecting on the tyranny of the French Revolution, people also uncovered his ideas. You could say everyone in Western thought has criticized Machiavelli, but is this criticism biased? To address this, Quentin Skinner, a leading expert in modern intellectual history and professor at London University, wrote the book Machiavelli that I'm discussing today. In this book, the author sets aside all biases and traces Machiavelli's evolving thoughts through each phase of his life. After hearing this, you'll understand how Machiavelli's ideas developed. The book is divided into 4 parts. First, Machiavelli's early political career. Second, the creation of the prince. Third, the contents of discourses on Livy. Fourth, the writing of Florentine histories. So I'll go through each in this order for you. First, let's discuss Machiavelli's early political career. In 1469, Machiavelli was born into a declining noble family in Florence. At the time, Italy was made up of many scattered city-states of various sizes. Florence, where he was born, was one of them. At this time, Florence was nominally a republic, but actually ruled by the Medici family. In Machiavelli's youth, things shifted. The Medicis were overthrown, Florence became a true republic, and at age 29, Machiavelli became the secretary of the Second Chancery. With no political experience, how did he get such power so quickly? Because at that time, Florence embraced humanism, and government officials were the finest humanists. And Machiavelli received an excellent humanist education from childhood, making him a very suitable candidate. More importantly, his teacher had just become the head of the First Chancery, and Machiavelli's teacher greatly admired this student. Besides being the secretary of the Second Chancery, he was also appointed as one of the 6 secretaries of the First Chancery. This role essentially made him Florence's diplomat, allowing Machiavelli to personally meet the era's most important politicians. This experience played a crucial role in shaping his thoughts. For instance, Machiavelli's first diplomatic mission was to meet the King of France. Before this, Pisa, which was subject to Florence, rebelled. Florence requested French aid, and their joint forces attacked Pisa, but suffered a crushing defeat. Machiavelli's mission was to tell France that Florence's army wasn't that bad after all. So, what was the outcome? After living in France for 6 months, Machiavelli deeply realized that compared to France, Florence's military was simply laughable. At that time, Florence had no standing army. Whenever war broke out, they had to hire mercenaries. Their combat effectiveness was predictable, yet Florentines thought they were powerful. However, in reality, France looked down on this outwardly strong but weak ally. Later, Machiavelli met another important Italian ruler, Cesare Borgia. He was the illegitimate son of the Pope, not only ambitious but also decisive, willing to kill without hesitation to achieve his goals. It was he who proposed that states should establish their own armies, a very strange idea back then since nearly all Italian rulers used mercenaries, but Machiavelli saw it as highly visionary. He incorporated this into his later writings, showing that Machiavelli's ideas were profoundly influenced by his contemporaries. Machiavelli wasn't one for empty talk. He hoped his theories would strengthen Florence, but reality didn't go as planned. Although the Medici family had been expelled from Florence, their influence remained strong, and they had a chance to return, which came soon enough. Because of a conflict, Spain invaded Italy and overthrew Florence's republican government. And the Medici family took advantage to step in, regaining control of Florence after 18 years. Machiavelli, who had been a rising star and held key positions in the Republic, quickly lost his office and was accused of plotting rebellion. Machiavelli went to prison, so what did this down-and-out Machiavelli do to change his fate? The answer is his next work, The Prince. Now let's discuss the second part, the birth of the prince. The restored Medici family not only became masters of Florence again, but rose even higher. In 1513, Giovanni de' Medici was elected pope. To celebrate, Florence declared an amnesty, and Machiavelli was released as a result. Right after leaving prison, he started writing The Prince, this immortal work. Why did he write this book? In a letter to a friend, he wrote, it was to catch the Medici family's attention, to tell the rulers he had outstanding governing skills. To emphasize this, in The Prince's preface, he bluntly stated he had rich political experience, deeply studied history, and mastered the essence of governance. Nowadays, The Prince might seem dry to read, like vague talk, but when it was first written, it was highly relevant. The book mentions states are divided into republics and monarchies, with monarchies further split into hereditary and new states. Machiavelli focused on new monarchies, which matched Florence's situation then. The whole theme of The Prince is how to govern a state, including 2 points. First, the state must have its own army. This came from Machiavelli's experience gained through years of diplomatic work. As for the second and most important point, that's the prince should have good virtue. This virtue mainly means political tactics. Here, the prince presents a truly shocking theory, the main reason Machiavelli has been condemned for 5 centuries. The book says a prince should make the people fear him, but not hate him. Ruthless means are unavoidable, but the people must feel they're necessary. How to achieve this? The book also gives the answer: deceive the people. Machiavelli believed that as long as these actions served to strengthen the state, they were acceptable. The groundbreaking emergence of the prince nakedly described politics' dark side, becoming synonymous with dark politics for 5 centuries. In this book, Machiavelli completely overturned all traditional moral concepts, religion, and theological ethics. Even the prince's private life he considered irrelevant. Even if messy, it had nothing to do with governance. Even today, such views would hardly find open approval. Notably, while earlier Machiavelli supported republicanism and was a humanist, the prince completely conflicts with humanist thought. After completing The Prince, Machiavelli sent it to a Florentine official friend, hoping he'd present it to the Pope. But after reading it, this friend pretended to forget about it. This made Machiavelli realize his political career was over. He abandoned his diplomatic dreams and retreated to become a pure scholar. So he returned to humanism, gathering daily with scholars who detested Medici tyranny. Their political discussions eventually linked them to a coup attempt, leading to their arrest. Only Machiavelli, well-versed in political risks, shrewdly avoided capture. After this, the scholarly gatherings stopped. But these interactions deeply influenced Machiavelli, prompting him to create a new work. Discourses on the first 10 books of Titus Livy. We'll refer to it as Discourses on Livy, which is the third part we'll discuss. Notably, this work shows new thinking from Machiavelli. Livy was a historian of ancient Rome. At first glance, Discourses on Livy appears to be commentary on Livy's work, but actually, Discourses on Livy is full of free association, using commentary as a vehicle for Machiavelli's own views. These relatively fragmented ideas never formed a complete system. Still, these ideas connect somewhat to the prince. Therefore, we can see Discourses on Livy as a continuation of the prince, though its historical impact never matched the prince's. As mentioned earlier, the prince tells monarchic leaders how to govern, but in Discourses on Livy, Machiavelli's attitude shifted. In the book, Machiavelli uses glorious Rome as a case study, analyzing why it was powerful, hoping Florence could replicate its experience. From this, we can see that when studying any political issue, Machiavelli always kept Florence's fate in mind. So, what views did he express in this book? First, Machiavelli clearly states that republicanism is better than monarchy, reversing the prince's stance. In monarchies, all interests revolve around the ruler alone, and the monarch fears threats to their power, so talent can't thrive. But in republics, this flaw disappears. Rome experienced both republic and monarchy, and the Republican era was its most glorious. This is history's lesson. Traditionally, he believed the people must enjoy freedom. Today, we easily grasp this, but how to achieve it? Machiavelli proposed that the people must control power organs and compete against each other to create checks and balances. That the struggle he advocated isn't factional conflict, using an ancient Chinese saying, "Gentlemen associate but don't form cliques. People should debate interests rationally, not form parties based on friendships to exclude others." Discourses on Livy has another controversial view. A wealthy state with poor citizens prevents dictatorship. The book says, after Roman victories, individuals only gained honor, while material rewards went to the state, so no one grew rich enough to challenge the state, preventing dictatorship and maintaining republicanism. Machiavelli summarized Rome's experiences while recalling the lost Florentine Republic. He painfully noted that most Florentine Republic policies were foolish. Finally, in near despairing anger, he concluded Discourses on Livy. After finishing Discourses on Livy, Machiavelli's fate shifted again, giving him a chance to answer that earlier question. Why did Florence's republic fail? Originally, the restored Medici family suddenly remembered Machiavelli, this outstanding theorist. So they assigned him an important task: to write a history of Florence, which became Machiavelli's last significant work. This is the fourth key point we'll discuss: the creation of Florentine histories. This work is rigorously conceived with fluent and elegant language and strong literary qualities. More importantly, he broke with the tradition of European historiography. Before him, European historiography was dominated by theology. But Machiavelli freed himself from such notions, viewing history as a naturally occurring process rather than divine arrangement. Although he wrote about Florence's history, he attempted to summarize the laws of historical development within it. And it was precisely because of such breakthroughs that this Florentine histories is revered by Western historians as a pioneer of modern historiography. However, this book also has flaws, namely a lack of authenticity, because Machiavelli aimed to convey his own views through history. How did he achieve this? He wrote his views as impassioned speeches and put them in the mouths of historical figures. Therefore, as a historical work, much of its content is fabricated. For example, in the book, there's a character named Rinaldo who, seeking help from the Duke of Milan, delivers a speech full of patriotic themes. And this is clearly Machiavelli using this character's mouth to say what he wanted. In Florentine histories, Machiavelli prompts people to ponder this question: why did this city experience repeated decline? In his view, the decline of city-states was due, on one hand, to lack of decisiveness in military matters, and on the other, to internal strife. Machiavelli's governing philosophy factional struggle is utterly harmful to the state. And in Florence's history, whenever there was internal conflict, factional struggle inevitably occurred, causing this beautiful and wealthy city to gradually decline. However, when discussing Florence's decline, Machiavelli was very subtle. After all, history and reality overlapped. He believed that the primary culprit of Florence's decay was the Medici family, and they still ruled the country, as covered in the book's final two chapters. Machiavelli, in his lengthy praise of the Medici family, concealed criticism of their reputation-seeking and wasteful extravagance. From these criticisms, it's clear that at heart, he still yearned for a republican system. After finishing Florentine Histories, Machiavelli completed his entire exposition on state and politics and was about to reach the end of his life. Unfortunately, the end of his life was also accompanied by a tragedy. Soon, the Spanish army returned to Italy and brutally sacked Rome, where the Pope resided. At that time, the Pope was also a member of the Medici family. Affected by this event, the Medici regime in Florence also collapsed. The state became a republic again. Machiavelli had once supported republicanism, but was also close to the Medici family, putting him in a very awkward position. Not long after, he fell seriously ill and soon passed away. At this point, we've covered Machiavelli's book. In total, we've discussed 4 parts of the content. First, his early political career. Second, the story of him writing The Prince. Third, the ideas reflected in discourses on Livy. Fourth, the historical background of writing Florentine histories. Over the past 500 years, Machiavelli has faced countless judgments from people. Everyone says he was the devil's servant, and some even say he was the devil himself. What the author Quentin Skinner does in this book is place Machiavelli back in the Renaissance era, allowing readers to see that it was that era full of war and deceit that gave birth to Machiavelli and his political thought. All right, that's it for our interpretation of Machiavelli's book. The listening notes are below the audio. See you tomorrow.